Good morning. Thank you. My name is Claire Warner. We have a lovely full room of people here today, and welcome to people at home as well if you're watching. I've chosen a picture today that's very close to my heart, Misty Autumn Morning. Where my parents live in Berkshire, they live next to the River Kennet. And when I stay with them, I look out of my bedroom window in the morning this time of the year. And on the other side of the river, there's a field, usually with sheep in there, and beyond that, some hills. And I was there a couple of days ago, and it was a picture just like this. The sheep were in the field, the sun was coming up, it was shining on their backs and on their little bodies, this lovely orangey colour, and beyond that, the mist before it got to the hills. So this, as I say, is a picture I absolutely love. It's the time of day I like to go walking, when there's a promise of sunshine for the day. It's very quiet. All you can hear sometimes is the animals sort of waking up. As long as you're away from the motorway, that's wonderful. And you can almost hear the sheep nibbling, can't you? So it's a very special time of the day. And the morning that I was there a couple of days ago looked just like this. These colours are lovely. And I think after a warm summer, when we know that it's going to get a little bit colder, isn't it? And a bit darker, we need to appreciate the autumn and the days like this as much as we can. One thing that I do is I never paint gloom. My pictures are always full of sunshine. So during the winter, if it's a dark, grey day, I love to get the paints out and just paint something with sunshine. It's a wonderful way of keeping ourselves cheerful, isn't it? So this is a very atmospheric picture. So what we're going to be doing is working very much from the back to the foreground. And I think really we're going to be painting very subtly at the back. I can see some people thinking subtle. I don't do subtle. A little bit if I say to people, we're going to be using our imagination. But actually, it's more suggesting things rather than fully describing them. And that's what we're going to do towards the back, to get that lovely feeling of sort of slightly out of focus and mistiness. And then as we come forward, because the trees and the sheep are in silhouette, they're going to be darker. So it's kind of automatically giving us the perspective that we need. If any of you are worried about drawing sheep, you'll find that you've got a sketch there and trace down. But if you're at home, just finding some picture of sheeps, you can use some of those in your picture. Just remember, they get smaller as they go back. And the other thing about sheep is they do actually, one of your photographs, I'm just going to put it up here so hopefully you can see it on the screen. Can you see this one here? You know, if you do the back of a sheep, it's almost like an oval with two little chubby little thighs and then little spindly little legs and a little V for the tail and perhaps just a couple of ears sticking up. You could do all your sheep facing away from you, and it would make it an awful lot easier. But because they're in silhouette, we're not going to do eyes and noses and mouths and you know, portraits of them, thank goodness, all right? So if you're at home and you don't have a trace down, please find some pictures of some sheep, preferably back view if you find it difficult. That's what we're going to be doing. What we're going to do here in the studio is, first of all, we're going to tape our paper down. But can I make a suggestion? This applies to you at home. If there's anything you don't need on your table, perhaps just pop it underneath. You've all got some baby wipes there. I noticed this gentleman very sensibly shoving them under the table, just to clear a few little bits. That would be sensible. And the other thing I'm going to say to you, you've noticed that you've got your boards up on a block to tip them. I always paint flat in watercolour. I can then pick up my board and I can decide whether I want to tip it or not, because if you're not careful, for me, the board is deciding where your water and your paint goes. I'd like you to be in control of your picture. So if you want to take the block away and have it flat, do by all means do that. It's entirely up to you. Anything you don't need, shove it under the table. Yes, good idea. Okay, all right. So when you've sorted yourself out, and the other thing is, I'm quite sure I don't need to tell you this, but if you're right-handed, try and have your art materials on the right. I think you're sharing, aren't you, many of you? So if you're right-handed, you're still having to go to the left. But generally speaking, I would suggest, if you're left-handed, to have your art materials on the left. And if you're right-handed, have them on the right. And try and keep them that way. Gives you a chance then to have your glass of wine or your coffee or whatever on the other side. How many of you stuck your brush in your coffee or your wine or whatever it is that you drink when you're painting? Okay. So when you're ready, we're going to stick our paper down. You should have some tape there. I'm going to suggest half on the paper, half on the board. I don't mean to insult you. I'm sure many of you stuck paper down before, but last time somebody said to me, "Thank you for showing me how to stick the paper down." So I thought I would help you stick the paper down. And this is good tape. I'm not here to tell you how wonderful the SAA products are, by the way. It's not. But I'm telling you, this SAA tape is good. If you get it from a DIY store, it so often lifts, doesn't it? And it's very annoying because you can get back run. So I would plug that this is a good product. It's the one I use. All right? Is that it?
It's breaking up as we tear it.
Oh, is it? I'm doing all four sides. I prefer to stick my paper right down. If you don't, you may find your water and your paint will zoom off the side. Do as you're told, yes. That's what I like to hear. Are you having trouble taping the picture down? I think you might need to help him. Is it? We've got someone here who definitely doesn't wrap his own Christmas presents. I think he needs... Perhaps encourage you to put it just a little bit further on the next ones, yeah? I think what they do at lunchtime, they come to measure your pictures so they can give you a mount. It'd be nice if they were standard size, would be helpful for them, if that's all right. Well done. This is the most difficult part of the picture, by the way, sticking it down. Does that help? It's just paint and water after that. It's fine. Okay, I'm going to move on. If you're going to use the trace down and trace the sketch that I've sent in, entirely up to you. This is not cheating. We're here to paint. You need to put your trace down on first and stick it down quite securely. All right, so it'll probably go just inside where your tape is. Can I just borrow my tape back a second? Here we go. Do make sure you're sticking it the right way down. You've got the dark side down, which is the carbon side. Yeah. And do stick it down securely because you don't want it to move. Right, and the next thing you're going to do is you're going to stick your sketch on top. There we There you go. Quite helpful if you get a pencil and just check you've got it the right way round before you start drawing. Yes, if it comes through, you've got it the right way round. Nothing worse than going all the way through it and realising there's nothing on the other side, and plus you will be covered with black. Reminds me of the old carbon paper you used to use for typing. Everything ended such a mess, didn't it? You just had carbon everywhere. In the olden days.
When you were doing 6 copies.
6 copies, yes. You used to have to bang really hard, didn't you, on the typewriter?
Yes.
Right. Is anybody not using trace down and drawing freehand? Good. Sometimes it's just as easy. So you just get started. That's absolutely fine. Right, are we ready to go? So all we're going to do is try and press reasonably hard, not with your hand, but with the pencil. You've got some lovely sharp pencils, and I notice you've got a pencil sharpener in there. You need to have a really fine tip. You're basically just going to trace the paper. I can already hear mine snapped because I'm pressing so hard. But do check that it's coming through before you go too far. I mean, more than anything, it's giving you an indication where everything's going to be placed, really. Mind my head. Thank you. Keeping us quiet here, isn't it? I'll be honest, this is the first time I've ever used trace down. Do just check before you get carried away that it's coming through periodically. It's quite a good idea. And make sure you're not smudging. You just need to keep the paper still. I'm just seeing somebody who's just sort of scraping their hand across the paper. Be really careful because that carbon comes through quite easily. So if you could keep your hand as far away and just keep the pencil going through, that's quite helpful. You can buy some lovely stencils of animals. I think Early Learning Centre do them for children. I loved doing that with the children when they were tiny. I thought, oh, this is the way to draw. It's quite relaxing doing this, isn't it? Done all the hard work for you here. Right. Come see how you're all doing. Is it coming through all right? Good. It's a lot easier than trying to draw sheep, isn't it? Yes, good. Have you lifted it up to check it's coming through all right?
My problem is I can't press on too hard.
No.
So
I
tend to
I'm just
have
wondering-
to go over it again.
That's okay. Can I lift this up and just check it's
Yeah.
coming through for you? Is that all right?
I think that might be the best.
Oh,
I
look,
can
it's
do.
coming through beautifully.
I think I've done it actually.
Charge on. Do you want to have a look?
I think I might have finished. Yes.
Shall I just lift it up and have a look? What I want to be careful of is I don't take the whole of this off in case you have to do it again. So I'll just lift this bit of the paper. Look.
Okay. Now I've got the main thing.
There, aren't you clever? Well done. You can take...
I don't usually do tracing because I have to use both hands. I
Yes.
smudge it very easily.
Well, look,
But
you
I
haven't.
No. So it's worked well.
Yeah, that's a very good advertisement for the SAA trace down. How are we doing? You're all checking, are you, before you take it off? Happy? Take it off. Yes, if you're happy with what's underneath. It's come through really well, hasn't it? I'm quite impressed with that. How did you manage it? It's wonderful, isn't it? Ah. Can I just show everybody? Look, we have a genius at the back of the room here. Right. And here's a suggestion. What this lady at the back did, she put this wad of tissue underneath her hand, and it stopped any smudging, didn't it? I think we should patent that.
Thanks for telling me.
Now we're all finished. That's a really good idea. Right, you all happy with your picture? Not quite. That's all right, don't worry. Got a couple of minutes. Clock's ticking. If you have got any smudges like me, I'm sure you haven't, if you rub it out, when you've used a rubber, it's always worth using a dry brush just to get your rubbing bits off rather than your hand. Save smudging. Okay, I know a couple of people are just finishing off. We're actually going to mask our sheep, hence the apron. I am very good at getting masking on something every time I wear it, so I'm going to wear an apron. You're probably not as messy as me. And what we're going to do is we are going to mask the whole of our sheep. So we're going to block them in. So you should have some masking fluid there. Can I make a suggestion? Would you mind hanging on to it? It's so easy with masking fluid to tip it over, and it doesn't like carpets and it doesn't like clothes very much. Anybody had that experience? Doesn't seem to want to come off, does it? Never used it before, right? So has anybody not used a ruling pen? Oh, lots of you. Right. It's got a little wheel on it, so you can open and close the end. I love these. You can get quite a fine line by altering that little wheel. But my suggestion is you hold it upright. I will show you how to do it, and you can use it for colouring in. I'm going to be sensible, and because I'm right-handed, I'm going to start on the left-hand side. But I keep it pretty upright. Now, first of all, I'm just going to go around the outside. Can you see that by holding it upright makes a lovely clear line? And then on the side, I just use it for colouring in. And the lovely thing is, when it dries on there, it's not going to ruin it. So if you'd like to do your sheep, I'm going to leave just a tiny little bit of a gap. If there's two of them together, I'm going to leave a little gap between them, so that when I take the masking off, I can still see the shape of my sheep. What's you doing? Sharing your masking fluid? Okay, I have a plan. Okay, have you not? Is there one ruling pen? Right. Okay, I have a plan. Just a minute. If you stay put, I'm pretty sure there's some more here. We'll be here a while otherwise. Let's raid the supplies here, shall we? Okay. Make sure you hold the top before you shake it. All right. Anybody else need some masking fluid? Okay. Here we go. Have one of your own. Whoops. All right. Hold the top. Of course you can. I'm getting to you, honestly. Stand. Is there any in there? Okay. It's like passing out sweeties, isn't it?
Just take it out, take it.
Was anybody else masking fluid? Yes? Okay. So this is a new experience for you, this is it?
I've never used one of these.
Have you not?
It's really good.
It is good, isn't it? Yes. I'm very good at promoting the SAA products, aren't I?
Comes out quite thick, is that?
Yes, it's better if it comes out thick.
Is it?
If it's too thin, sometimes it's more difficult to get off the paper. And I also like the blue colour. It shows up better. You've both got one, yes? Okay. Did you want one? Yes, give it a shake, absolutely. With the top on. You wouldn't be very popular otherwise. You can use a ruling pen for inks. Acrylic inks are quite good, or watercolour inks. Great fun. My mother was a cartographer in the war, and she used one of these for drawing maps. So that's what they're used for. I'm actually going to put mine over there and bring up another one because this is dry. I need to move on. There we go. Blue Peter, one I did earlier. Exactly the same. Of course I can. Not working. Is it the first time you've used it? It takes a while to get used to it.
Mustn't it? I usually
Okay, excuse me 1 second. First of all, you need to, I don't think you've opened it up enough. Try mine. Mine definitely does work. I think what's happened is that you need, it's getting a bit thick. You could always wipe it if it's not flowing. I'm just going to put this up here a minute.
I usually use an old brush that I don't care about,
Yes.
but I can't get the definition.
Okay.
I think it's so thick. It won't go on because it's just too thick.
I'm just going to move your bag a second.
Oh, sorry, I've just put it there.
No, it's perfect. Right, remind me to move it back for you. This one is quite thick, isn't it? Okay.
So it was far enough apart then. I did
Yeah.
buy one of these, but I've just never used it. I can do the inside, I think, better than the outside.
Okay, well, if I just do the outside, you could kind of colour it in, couldn't you?
Yes, that'd be fine. I didn't know how much. I've never been on one of these before, so whether to ask for help or not.
I can help you.
Well, you know what I mean, whether you're
Yeah.
supposed to be still at the front or not being photoed. Are they photoing us now?
No. Only the back of you. It's getting a bit gooey because I need to wipe it probably. So I'll do that before you start filling it in, all right? There we go. Have you two come together?
Yes.
Okay. So let's have a look at your picture. Where's your sketch? Could I just look at the sketch down there? Hold on.
I put another one there.
You
And
did,
another
didn't
one
you?
there.
Oh,
I always do that just to make it slightly different.
certainly slightly different. Okay, he's lost his ear here. That's what it was.
Ah.
There we go. If they don't look right, you can blame me then, can't you?
Where do you come from? You nearby?
We've come from Northamptonshire.
Oh, a long way.
It only took about an hour and a half. It's not too bad. There we are. You've got 2 legs at the back there, 1 leg at the front. I'm just going to fill this one in because it's a bit tiny, that one.
That's fine.
Okay,
That's
give me
fine.
1 second. I'm going to just wipe this. Gonna borrow that a sec. Is everybody else all right? You struggling with this? It does take practice. People do try and wipe it and start again with it because it can get a bit yeah, it can.
That's it. That was just one extra there.
If you fill these in, would you be
Yes.
able to happy to give that a go?
Yes, I will
And if you
give it
have
a
a
go.
problem, I will come back. Right. Am I making noises? You're nearly finished now. I've come too late, haven't I? Try mine. It might, I don't know whether that's less thick. Give it a try. Just try mine because it, okay. I don't- Yes, I have. You can just see, can't you? So I've left a little bit of a space just between them.
So that'd be
And then
okay.
when you paint them afterwards, it does help a little bit.
Yeah.
But you know, you need quite a fine hand to do that. It doesn't matter. If we take this off with mask away, it doesn't rub your pencil marks out anyway. You didn't have any trouble, did you?
No, that was all right. I like that. I've not seen one of those.
Good. We've got some converts then to ruling pens. It does take practice. People very rarely get to like them until they've used them a couple of times.
We use a nylon brush.
And it works for you.
Tight and get in such fine.
Stick to what you like then. It's not a problem. Ah, good. So say the nice thing about these, if you left it to dry, it's not going to ruin it. You can just wipe it off later.
We can use a brush. When
You
do it
could-
in liquid form,
You could do this.
like an ink.
Yeah. Have a play. Anything that's very liquid, it would work with for sure. This gentleman was asking if I could use it for anything. He could use it for anything else. Certainly, inks are really nice to use a ruling pen. But even with watercolour, you could use it if you wanted to. So just a little reminder, perhaps for people at home, if they haven't used one of these before, obviously you can use an old brush. You can use special nylon brushes for masking. But these are very good, but they do take practice. But try and hold it upright. That's how you get it to flow better. If you then put it on the side to colour in, it works quite well. The good thing about masking our sheep in it, once this is dry, and it has to be dry before you put paint on it, is it means we can be free with our painting now. And these will stand out at the end. You'll have nice sharp edges, or we can get everything in this picture. They will be the last thing that we paint. So you don't have to worry about avoiding them when you're putting your paint on. I'm still going to say to you, I think this is the hard bit of the picture. You know, preparing it, getting... You liked doing that. Can only get better then, can't it? But I never start painting until I am happy with, first of all, what I'm painting, that I've drawn it up, that I've kind of got my detail and my structure to the picture before I put the paint on. There's a lot to think about when you're painting, so the more you can get some guidance and feel as though you've got some direction, the better. I'll just wait a couple more minutes and then we'll get started. You can get rid of it if you want to, Robert, or you could take it home and have another go. The other thing is, I'm quite sure they're going to be allowed to take them home, aren't they? I'm asking Adam here at the back who's filming. He's going to give permission, I'm sure, aren't you, Adam? It's all his fault if he gets into trouble. I think they want to take them home. Yes, you can take everything. Yeah. Not everything home, but you can take that home. I don't want you to go like that with the whole lot of your art materials. You might be on camera. The drawings, yes, absolutely. But you can reuse these in other parts. They go on for quite a long time, apparently. I've seen some people, they seem to have used them over and over again, these trace down. Not for the same picture, for different pictures. So it was worth coming, wasn't it? You got a piece of trace down to take home. I'm just going to wait a couple more minutes, a few people just finishing at the back, and then we'll start mixing our colours. It feels as though it's a lot of preparation before we actually get into the painting, doesn't it? But I think preparation is very important, particularly with watercolour. I think with oil and acrylics, you can kind of go in there and sort of make it up as you're going along, but not quite really with watercolour. I'm a great believer in planning. Is there? Yes, if you're worried about it, if you get your tape and just take it further down the page, it would give you more foreground. It is entirely up to you. You can't, can you?
No.
Oh, the trees are quite tall.
Yeah.
I think what's happened when this was printed, it did chop some of the top off. Yes, I don't.
Need to take the trees further up then.
Yes. Yes, you don't need to take the trunks further up because there'll be little branches up there. Can I just borrow your picture a minute? I'm just going to... What this gentleman was saying was that in the sketch, that the picture here has actually lost a little bit of the top of the trees, which we'll be painting. Yeah. But I'd rather you didn't take the trunks too far, because what happens, I want it just to fade out at the top there. So perhaps not draw the trunks in now, but if you're worried about it, you can always take your tape down a little bit if you want a bit more room in front of your sheep. Surprising, there's quite a lot of... Oh, sorry, your picture. There's quite a lot of distance between your sheep and the front, actually.
Yeah.
Surprising.
Yeah.
are you happy with that?
Yeah, I'm happy with the foreground. It was like I was seeing a gap. There's nothing.
Yes,
on top.
no,
We're gonna do
absolutely.
that with paint rather than drawing it.
Yes, we'll often draw with paint. Right, I am going to start mixing paints now. I think everybody's pretty much ready. Right. Ready to go. Right, we're painting with a limited palette. I know my palette's stuck down. I'm just going to unstick it, actually, if you don't mind, and put it the other way. Sorry. I try not to be too over the top. I like to have my yellows at the top, my reds in the middle, and my blues at the bottom. I always keep my palettes, my colours, in a similar place on my palette. It's a little bit like driving a car. If every time you get in the car, the steering wheel's in a different place or the gear lever's in a different place, it can get confusing, can't it? And I get quite a number of people coming to workshops, and they'll say to me, I get a bit muddled with my colours, Claire, and I look at their palettes, apart from the fact they're absolutely filthy, and I think, well, it's not really surprising. It's quite good, isn't it, to know where your colours are. And they also arrive with about 50 different tubes of paint and say, I'm a bit confused about colours. So we're using a limited palette. Always, I will have at least one yellow, at least one red, and at least one blue if I can. So I've got a yellow, a red, a blue, one of each of the primary colours. Today, we've got actually 2 yellows. You've just got 2 dollops of yellow. So we've got a cool lemon yellow. We've got 2 warm yellow ochres, because you can see from the picture, it's quite a warm yellow picture, isn't it? You've got quinacridone magenta. This is a really wonderful pink colour. Can you see it there? It's quite vibrant. Delicious. You've then got some burnt sienna, which I probably will use more as a mixer to make my browns and my darks. You've got a cobalt blue for your sky and some of the mauve colours. I will explain that as we go through. You've got ultramarine. And then at the bottom, you've got just a little bit of tropical phyllo. Ooh. Somebody said to me this morning, I like the colour of your glasses. Well, I said, I'm going through my sort of tropical phyllo period, you know, my cerulean period. Okay, so you've got 2 very strong colours here. I've got 2 pots of water. I know that you may or may not have 2 pots. But what I'm going to say to you is I like to try and keep one of them clean. If you're sharing, if you could share nicely, and perhaps just keep one of the pots for washing out your brush and one of them for clean water. If you mess it up, it's not a problem. At the back of the room, there's buckets for the wastewater and there's clean water. But you will see me putting quite a lot of pure clean water on the paper to move the paint around during the day. So I'm going to keep mine away. So if you want to do the same, put one of the pots away to keep the water clean. Because otherwise, if there's a pot there, you're likely to keep dipping in it, aren't you? Does that make sense? Right. So we will mix our colours up to start with. You might have noticed as I was going through, I've got a cool, a warm, a cool, a warm, a cool, a warm, and actually that's a warm. I don't know whether I did that by accident, but this is my standard palette. And then I will take colours away and add to this, but it's a good standard palette for me. So what we're going to do is we are just going to mix up the colours we're going to use for our first wash. Missing a brush. A middle brush? Okay. Thank you. There we are.
Number 6, is it?
There we are. Sorry, can I have it? This is a number 6. All right. Is there a spare 6 anywhere? Is there an empty place with a... Is there? Thank you. That is super. There we go. Let's dump that one. I will put that there to mention. Right, are we all got our brushes? I tend to use something like a number 6 to mix my colours with. When you're washing the paint out, you're not washing too much out. If I see you using that, if you think about it, every time you wash it out, you're losing an awful lot of paint. It's hard work for you, apart from anything else. My background is oils, so I tend to make up quite thick mixtures of paint. You can always add water. It's more difficult to add the paint. And I find people generally make their paints quite weak. And as you know, it dries about half as light when it's dry as when it's wet. So if you can make them fairly strong, that's my way of doing it. Up to you, it's your picture today. So I'm going to take quite a lot of my yellow ochre. Gosh, it is thick. And add just a little bit of water to this one. Just make sure you completely mix it up. And you've got a piece of tester paper, so you can test that is very thick, what I have got there. Okay, I'm going to take another dollop of that in the well underneath and add much more water to it. So you, in a sense, have got two strengths. I tell you what I'm going to do. While you're doing that, I'm going to get you another pot. Two pots. Have we?
Could you please ask Claire what's a good alternative if you don't have lemon yellow?
Lemon yellow. Right.
Repeat the question.
Okay, no problem. Are you filming me? This is favouritism.
It is, isn't it?
It certainly is. So you're going to keep one of these clean?
Yes.
You are now, aren't you? Let's put that away. Would anybody appreciate another pot of water? Are you doing all right? Is there? Let's see if we can find you another brush. All right. Have we got a spare brush anywhere? Might be. go. There we go. All right.
Thank you.
Right, we are using SAA paints today. So if at home you haven't got exactly the same colours, the lemon yellow, it's a very cool yellow. So I believe that something like Windsor yellow is a very similar colour, as long as it's a cool colour. So you've got one warm, I don't know whether you can see on the screen. Look how, does it look cool to you from there? Does it? It looks very different to me here. It looks quite warm, but very cool colour. So have a look in your box and test them. So you've got a cool yellow. They're so different, these two. And the yellow ochre, if you've got raw sienna, perhaps, that's another colour that you can use. It's fairly similar to yellow ochre. Does that answer the question, hopefully, for the lady who asked at home? Yeah? It was a man. Peter. Pete. Okay, Pete, I hope that's answered your question. You want one cool yellow and one warm yellow. The names might be slightly different depending on what paints you've got, obviously. Okay, so the next one I'm going to mix up is my cobalt. So that is number 6, isn't it? This is your cool blue. I don't want it too strong. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking the water out with my pipette from the clean pot now. Anybody not used a pipette before? Wow, aren't they fabulous? I don't get commissioned for this, you know. Always use a pipette. They're so useful. I think they cost about 45p. Okay, you want to get this the right consistency. I happen to know that's probably about right. Haven't made it quite as thick as the first yellow ochre. As I say, I don't really want my sky too heavy. Right, so we've mixed basically 3 colours up so far. The next one I'm going to mix up is I'm just going to mix up a little of the quinacridone magenta. This should have a health warning on it, this colour. It's very strong, beautiful colour, but you're only going to want a tint of this. Okay, it's number 4 and it's the first red, and you could probably when you put it out. So I'm having this quite thin. Don't know whether you can see that on the screen. That's got a lot more water in it than the other two because it doesn't fade. It's a very permanent colour and it doesn't fade. And if you put it too strong, it will dominate your picture. All right, okay, and last but not least, very tiny little bit of the tropical phyllo. The reason I'm going to put this one in my picture, apart from I'm having this tropical phyllo period, I think it's what famous artists did. They had sort of red periods and blue periods, didn't they? It's a very cheerful colour. If you put this in the sky, somehow it just brings some sunshine to your picture. So some of these colours might be quite new. If you're painting at home and you haven't got quinacridone magenta, rose madder, permanent rose, it doesn't have to be quinacridone magenta. Crimson alizarin would work, but it's a little bit blue. If you can find a fresh pink colour, I think that's going to make better magentas and oranges for this particular picture. I think crimson alizarin is a little blue. You're looking very worried. Never mind, this lady just said her yellow's gone into a pink. That's brilliant, you've just started your oranges. Bit early, but it doesn't matter. Whatever you do, don't worry, because they're all going to end up on the paper together anyway. All right? So, are we ready if I get started? Are we all mixed up? What you have to do is make sure you've got enough paint mixed up. So when it goes wrong for me, because I haven't mixed enough paint, I want you to do what I tell you, not what I do. Is that all right? So we've actually got 2 blues, 1 yellow, 1 pink. Yes, we've got 1 yellow with 2 mixtures. I beg your pardon. Yes, you're absolutely right. 1 yellow ochre with 2 mixtures, one stronger than the other. Yes, and we've also got quinacridone and magenta for our pink. We've got cobalt for our sky colour. I think I've got enough mixed up, but I'm not completely sure. But you'll find out in a minute. And the last one is tropical phyllo. You want this quite watery. Again, a very strong colour. Like the quinacridone magenta, it will dominate your picture if you don't have enough water. I'm trying to think if you haven't got this colour at home. Be careful. Prussian is a little bit stronger than this. You could try it. But I'm sure there are Prussian colours and phyllo colours that you might have in your palette. Just try them first. This is quite a bright turquoisey sort of blue, really. And Prussian has a little bit of red in it. It's a bit heavy. Thing to do is play with your paints, play with your colours. It's really good exercise. Right, are we ready? I'm going to cover the whole of this picture with paint. The reason you've got this big brush to frighten you all is just to wet the paper. Someone's saying, oh. You can use it if you want to, by all means. Okay? So I'm just going to wet my paper. The paper you've got is something like 280 gram, not quite 300 gram, but it's very heavyweight paper. You probably felt it when you were... So if you want to just watch what I'm doing before you paint, good thing is if mine goes wrong, then you can think, right, I'm not doing it that way. But obviously, once you've wet the paper, I can see this sinking in beautifully. This is a lovely brush to wet the paper with. Beg your pardon? Well, please don't wet your paper. Thank you. Mine is dry. That's the reason why I swapped it. So if you could watch me doing this, thank you so much for reminding me. It's very important. Your masking needs to be dry before you wet it. We do have hair dryers at the back, but by the time you've watched this and I've explained to you how you can dry it, you should be all right. This lady's going like this, like mad. You've got a spray bottle. What will probably happen, depending on how long it takes you to paint this, I can already see this beginning to soak into the paper and dry. All right, so I'm probably going to use a spray bottle, and I will show you why. I like the water to blend my colours. So I'm going to keep it. I'm going to go into my... Ooh, look, I'm mixing in. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Can you see that? I've got my oranges as well, because my table's tipped. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm looking at my picture, and I'm going to really think about the background trees. And I'm doing tree shapes here, because these really want to be out of focus. This little bit, oh, you can't see it, beg your pardon. This little bit here that's got the mist, I'm just going to leave that as water, okay? So I'm thinking trees at the back. See, I've got this all ready to give it a spray. So just above where the fence is here, I'm just leaving that wet.
This is only the thin mix, is it?
This is only the thin mix, Robert, yes, thank you. I feel very comfortable with the spray in my hand. Look, all over the tree trunks, because, of course, these are going to be darker anyway. Okay, I think that's as far as I'll go with the sky, and I'm just going to give that a quick spray. Keep it wet. Right, haven't finished yet. Okay, so the whole of the bottom here is going to be this colour, and as I come down, I'm actually going into my thicker mix to get it thicker, and that is quite thick. Okay, and again, I'm going to just give it a spray. and just do some tipping. Right, let's get into the sky now. Can you see where I put that there? I've got the beginning of the picture, haven't I? It's happening, starting, wonderful. Okay. Right, let's get into the sky. This is drying very quickly. So again, I'm going to give it a spray. I like the water. Now, cobalt, can you still see it if I'm tipping it? Yes, you can. Cobalt's a very heavy medium, so it doesn't tend to move as much as some of the other colours do. Now, you notice I was just dipping in there. I was actually just taking water and adding it to my paper. And I'm going to go next to the yellow ochre. Right, let's get some of this pink. Ooh, orange even. I think what we'll do is we'll redo that pink. That's better. I do like a little bit of pink in my picture. Okay, and again I'm going to, look, can you still see? Yes, you can, good. I'm going to get the water, move. I'm going to get the water to do the moving rather than me. Can you see that blending? I can see it blending anyway. There we go. Got some nice misty colours there. And a little bit of the cerulean in the sky. Be careful, that is quite strong, as I say. And then I'm going to give this all a spray in a minute to get it to move. Right, tipping it that way, down to the left. Quite liking that, making a green as it's going and some mauves. There we go. So instead of me shoving the paint around, I'm letting the water do the work here. Right, and I'm going to stop. If for any reason you've lost the mist, which I can see I have, I'm just going to take some water out of my brush, and I'm just going to roll it up like this a little bit. I'm not a dabber with tissue. I find that if you're not careful, that will take too much out too quickly. This will heal itself. So I might just take a little bit out here where the mist is as well. Can you see that coming off? Yeah, it heals itself. So I'm just taking the water out, flicking it on the carpet, sorry. It is above the base of the fence. So you've got the fence here, and I'm doing the mist there, and I'm doing it here underneath the trees. Yeah, at the back of the field. Okay, so do you want to give that a go? Do have your spray bottle to hand. It's very useful. But by rolling like that, it's really beginning to heal itself. I'm liking the way the colours are mixing, though. It's good. There's quite a few people going to the hairdryer to dry their picture. Before you put any paint on, it stays sticky, it stays moist, but it shouldn't have little globules. Yours is fine. Most of yours should be dry by now. Yep. Yours looks dry. That is wet. It's still wet. This will stay sticky, look. But you've got a little pool of liquid there that's not dry. I mean, personally, I would go over it. It's virtually there. If you count to 10 slowly and then go, you should be fine. You should be fine.
I think mine's dry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it stays sticky. Surprising how quickly it dried. Well, considering you struggled with that pen, you've made a lovely job of your masking. I used that one to put my paint on. No, you don't have to. You can use that whopper if you like. It is quite a whopper, but it will suck up an awful lot of paint. Yes. Let's have a look to see if you're dry. Oh, yes, you're definitely dry. It stays sticky.
Okay, right.
Your
Yes.
colours look lovely. Well done. Off you go. Yes. Yep. Got it. You're definitely dry. Yep, you can go. No, you're fine. It stays, if it's sticky, it's not a problem. It's when it's got a pool of liquid in it.
That's all right.
You're good to go. I must talk about hair drying. Thank you. I must talk about hair drying in a minute. Whee! Well, at least you haven't gone. Here we go. Where are you off to? Can I help you with something?
Stand up to do it.
Okay.
To do Sky standing up.
Yes, you can see more, can't you?
I just
All right. Okay. Don't hesitate to spray. It's quite thick, your paint.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how different people's pictures are already. Can I just say, while you're painting, just say something about masking fluid? This is good quality paper. It's fine to use a hairdryer on it, but be very careful you don't burn it on. I've used some very expensive handmade French paper once, and I've also used some very inexpensive paper, and you have to be very careful with masking fluid. If you burn it on with a hairdryer, it's not a good plan. Some of you are quite strong here. I'm going to suggest you give a spray. Yeah. I think it needs a spray. More spray. Is this your partner, husband, boyfriend? Brother. Okay. Interesting. Yours are complete opposites. You know, a bit more water, I think. Just don't hesitate to spray it. That's quite a lot of spray. I would get a tissue and just suck it a little bit, because it looks as though you've thrown a bucket of water at this picture. Oh, look, you've got a tree now. How's that? I hope you didn't mind me doing that. Oh, looking good. Yes, you're drying though. You might want to spray it. You're noticing this paper, heavyweight paper, it needs a lot of water, doesn't it? Am I standing in the way of the picture? Sorry. See how these ladies are getting on. Oh, I can tell you've painted before. That's lovely. Look, you've got a picture coming already. Look, when you get it just right, the trees are coming. Keep going. You'll want to get stronger, more pigment as you come down. Yeah, yeah. That's looking good. I think when you put your blue on, you will want to wet your paper a bit more. Yeah. Yes. Can I just try your spray? It's a bit dribbly, isn't it? Oh, it is dribbly. Let's get you another one. Of course. No problem. Excuse me. You just need to get your finger working on this one. It's a little stiff. There we go. Okay. Somebody else I've taken. Here we go. Yes, you definitely need to spray this at the top. It's beginning to dry. All right. Can't see the pink very easily on the screen, can you? I can see it on my picture. All right.
Just see, yeah.
Yes. Good. lovely. You've got trees coming already there. Exciting. Yeah. It's a lovely mess. It's working. I like it. Yes, and the lovely thing is, if you still feel it's too bright at the end, because we're putting trees over it, you can put some branches and a little bit of foliage. Covers all sorts of things that you don't like. But wait until you get to that point.
My blue for the top of the sky looks totally different. Have I
It
just put
does.
on?
No, what's happened is cobalt is a colour. If it has anything mixed in it at all, it gets sulky. And yours has picked up something. So what I'm going to suggest is that
Try again.
don't worry about what you've put on. Just mix it again. Be careful. There was obviously colour on your brush already.
Right, okay.
It's gone a little grey, hasn't it? If anybody's painting along at home, I bet there's masterpieces there that we can't see. I can see you helping your picture. You don't need to. You don't need to help it. It's happy all by itself. We've got some lovely first washes here. That's beautiful. Okay. I'm going to suggest, again, what's happening is it's lovely. I love your sky, but if you wanted that smoother, it's just the water and tipping, and it will blend by itself. Possibly, if you were to put a little more paint on and just tip it like this, I can almost see as though you're dabbing with the brush.
I was trying to get some of the deep out. I didn't like it. So
Well, take some, look, I suggest, give it a spray and use a dry brush, and just, do you remember me rolling it?
Yeah.
That's the best way to do it. I said it's a very heavy pigment, this blue, and it tends to sink into the paper very quickly. Don't think that's your picture is lovely. Just need to take that pink a little bit, don't you, and just tease it in with the brush down a bit. That's it. Needs a bit of encouraging. It's the sort of colour you'd like to have in your hair, isn't it? It's lovely.
I managed to drop on the bit, I didn't see that.
Okay, let's have a look down here. I think that could become a shadow, don't you?
I think this is not
But-
going to come out, is it?
Well, I don't know, you should do. If you get a dry brush, do you remember how I rolled it here to try and
Yeah.
get the mist? In fact, you could do that as well. I would just roll it. That's it. A little bit more water and just roll it. You could even give it a dab. I won't tell anybody. Should come out. It won't completely come out because I say it's a heavy pigment and it's going to sink.
Yeah.
But you need it out a little bit. That is lovely.
Shall I leave it?
Yes, absolutely. Don't.
What about this?
No, I would leave it.
Water?
Absolutely lovely.
Okay.
Beautiful first wash. Well done.
Down.
You've got some interesting things happening here. What's happening is that's beginning to dry and you're adding quite watery paint in. So what I'm going to suggest you do is spray it and then put a little bit more paint on there. Just spread it about. But don't worry about this because that can become trees up the top. We are doing very well. Nope. Stop. Step away. You don't need to help it. What's happening is this is beginning to dry and you're trying to help it. So I'm going to suggest you spray the whole of that bottom and tip it, and the water will blend it for you. That's it. Particularly this bit here. That's it. And just tip it. There we go. Do you mind if I give it a spray? Should we just get this before it gets too dry? There we go. Now, don't worry about the water running. See, what's going to happen is it's beginning to all blend together now. There we go. And I suggest you leave that. That looks fine to me. You happy with that? You happy?
Just about.
Just about.
Is that a bit too
Let's have a look at the photograph you've got. What reference material have you got? Right. Let's have a look. You see, look, most of that's going to get covered with trees.
So that's going to be it.
So I would leave it.
Okay.
I think it looks fine. Okay. If you feel your picture's arrived, you don't need to help it. That's all right, you're doing some rolling mist, aren't you?
Just gone in the middle.
Well, I like it. I like it. This gentleman's worried his pink's too strong, but just bear in mind, if you look at the picture you're going to be painting, a lot of that will be covered anyway, and you're only going to get these pictures glowing through. We worry terribly, don't we? I'm just noticing a few of you, when you've got lovely first washes, feeling that you've desperately got to help it. Should have a long ruler and go, shouldn't I? Stop. Stop. Just also for the people at home, because obviously I can't see what you're doing. I'm sure they're absolutely beautiful if you're painting along with me. If it doesn't please you, you can completely dry it and you can get a brush and you can wash it over like this, and you can do some tipping and let the water take some things away. You can add more colour. The thing about a first wash is sometimes we need to give it a second go. So what I'm going to say to you is try not to worry about it too much. Yes. I was packing in such a hurry yesterday that I sprayed my hair this morning after I'd washed it, and I thought, well, that smells nice. And I looked at it and realised it was men's deodorant. Now, it's the second time I've done it in a few weeks, so I think probably I need to put my glasses on. But I thought, do you know what? This is a good teaching point. If the hair hasn't fallen out, whatever. Life will carry on, won't it? Sometimes with watercolour, we have to go with the flow. I don't know what your name is, the lady at the front, but your picture is lovely, and your brush is still going like this. Do you want to put it, Jenny? Sorry, I won't tell you who it is. It's Jenny. Could you... Would you like to put your brush down? The person I'm not going to mention, thank you so much, because you need to let it have its say. Okay. The other thing I noticed this morning as I was leaving, one of my feathers fell out of my earring. And I thought, oh, well, my ear hasn't fallen off yet. So, sometimes with particularly with watercolour painting, it doesn't quite work out, does it? How we think it's going to work out. So this is the stage with your first wash, really. And again, if you're painting at home, you ought to give yourself a pat on the back. And remember to breathe, because we forget to breathe, don't we, when we're painting sometimes, and maybe go and make yourself a celebratory cup of coffee. What you need to do at this stage, you have got to dry your picture, because I'm a great believer you either paint when it's completely wet, so the paint moves around, or you paint when it's bone dry. Now that's just my way of painting, and I find that way your watercolours will stay quite fresh and vibrant. If you keep working in them, do you notice they tend to go a little bit flat and just lose their sparkle? So I find that's the best thing to do. Now mine is still quite wet, and I am going to move on in a minute. Now I'm not going to stand there with a hairdryer because you'll be able to hear it will be blasting your ears out. So what I have done, knowing this might happen, I've got another one ready. So what I'm going to do is, it looks pretty much the same. We could do a bit of comparing. I've got a bit more pink down the bottom on that one. Okay, one I did earlier. But I could guarantee you could do 10 of these and they'd all look slightly different. So I'm doing that if you don't mind, because it means I can move on. And as soon as yours dry, then you can do the next stage. I'm trying to keep the pace up because obviously I have to watch the clock and I know what we need to do. So what we're going to start working on next, we're going to start working on the background. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we're thinking subtle. We're thinking suggesting things rather than completely describing them. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to divide my picture up into thirds. I don't always do this, but I want you to know whereabouts to put your first background hill. I think that would be helpful. Now it's easier for me because obviously I've got this view pretty much in my mind. So I'm actually going to start painting. I know you've got this picture. Just I put that there a second. I'm actually going to start painting these background hills here. I don't know whether you can see them in the background. They also go back up behind the trees here. So I'm going to put them in with the hope that when I put these trees in, some of those background hills might just show through. Okay? So it's very subtle. It's very little paint. So I'm going to do that now. But before you start those, you will have to go and dry your picture completely. And this is very heavyweight paper. But I want to show you how I've got lots of big, there we are, there's my little one. I'm actually going to keep my size 2 and my size 6 handy and make sure I have got some clean water. Because sometimes, as I say, I'll put the paint on and then I will add water. Very few of my things that I paint are all one flat colour, unless it needs to be. But okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a little of the cobalt in with the quinacridone magenta. Now you'll need about 2/3 blue to the 1/3 of magenta, and it makes a very beautiful mauvey colour. Can you see the mauvey colour there? Or does it look very blue? Does it look mauve? Good, because here it looks blue to me. Yep, bit blue. Your colours will probably see. I have got some pink in there. I might just pass this round in a minute. I said to you I don't do cloudy skies. I don't do gloom or fog. I usually have sunshine in all my pictures. And very often I will do a mauvey grey or a pinky grey rather than just grey. So I'm going to do my background hills in that mauvey colour. I think I'm just going to use that colour. Why not? So, having done my thirds, just look at my picture here a second. Okay, so above the third, I'm then going to do a quarter. So what I'm saying is between that middle third bit, I'm going to go up about a quarter. In fact, I might go up more than that. I'm going to go up a third. Does that make sense? So what I'm saying is you've got a third. So in that quarter there, that third there, I beg your pardon, I'm going up a third. Does that make sense? So just about there, I'm going to be doing my hills. You could pencil them in if you wanted to. Right. And something I'm going to say to you, because the cobalt is a very heavy medium, it tends to sink in your palette and it will look very blue. So I'm just going to start at the back here and probably come down a little bit. Right, and then I'm going to paint with water and collect. I'm going all over the tree trunks because then sometimes I'll drop some more paint in. And what I want to do is give it a little bit of a soft bottom. If you paint with me, you'll hear me talking a lot about hard bottoms and soft tops. Okay, and then just painting with water again. until it gradually almost disappears. Okay, I think that's probably enough. But all the time, you notice paint on dry paper will make a hard edge, and paint that goes next to water will make a soft edge. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you've got a soft bottom and a hard top. So if you're happy to dry your painting and give that a go, I'm just going to soften that off. Yes, you can see the background hills, can't you? And make sure if you need to have some clean water that you find some clean water, please. Crackling. You will definitely need to dry your paper. It's very wet.
I'm very bold with it, so
If you want to be bold, that's fine, but you do need to dry it. Don't go back in now when it's damp, will you? And
I'm just
yes.
Got a little bit.
Don't worry, you'll be painting over that. And if not, we will incorporate it. All right. Looks good to me. Exciting. I know you're worried about your pink. I love your pink. You want to get that just sneaking through the trees. It will look lovely. Trust me. I like pink. I'll swap it with mine if you like, because I haven't got enough pink in mine. Foliage. Foliage on top of that. It's not a problem. But you know why it happened. Sorry? Well, what happened is that was beginning to dry, and you put quite watery paint on it, and that's what creates that. So if it's in foliage, it actually makes lovely shapes. All right? Okay, that's not dry, by the way. Can you see? I want you to put your hand on that.
oh, it's done.
Very interesting,
Do you know?
just by looking at it, because it's not laying flat. You have got very, very heavyweight paper. It will hold a lot of liquid, and when you think it's dry, it's not. It has to completely lay flat. I've got one gentleman here who's painted me on other times before, and I won't even need to look at his picture because he knows, don't you? It has to be dry. So it's harder work. You know, this could take 2 hours to dry by itself because it's, you know, it's such heavyweight paper. So you will need to queue up the hairdryer. It's going to get lovely and warm in here. So this is why I said to the people at home, this is a good time for you to go and make a celebratory cup of coffee or something while everybody's queuing to dry their paper. Have you dried yours?
Yes.
Okay. That's all right, that will settle down.
Yep.
And by the time you paint, it will be fine. Like, it feels dry. Sometimes people say, oh, it's dry, Claire. And I put my hand on, I think, gosh, I feel that, it's so damp.
Yeah.
It's not completely dry, but it's dry enough. Okay. So you good to go? Background hills?
Looks dry, but still damp, I think. Yeah.
Can you see how... Now listen, put your hand on that.
Yeah.
Tell me, is that dry? Damp,
It's
isn't
not
it?
dry enough though.
It feels damp. Yeah. But listen, you know, that will begin to dry a little bit by itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is lovely, you need to leave it. What this says to me, I know it's not completely laying flat, you've got undulations in your ground. I actually love it. May I look at it? See, that works for me. Yes, you need to leave it.
Okay. So dry it.
Mm,
Yeah, dry it.
definitely. You were first in the queue there.
Yeah.
Lovely and dry. You're good to go for hills now. Take to the hills.
That colour and this one?
No, definitely not.
Those
No,
two.
those two, please. We won't actually be using that colour again. You could always wipe it out. Are you dry? Looks dry to me. Well done. Yes. Okay, you're mixing cobalt with a little quinacridone magenta. Yes. Your tropical phthalo at the bottom you probably won't use again. So if you want to just wipe it out to stop you dipping in it by mistake, that's absolutely fine. So about 2/3 of the blue and about 1/3 of the pink will make a nice mauvey colour.
My cobalt blue must have got something else in. Is that what it should be like?
Yes,
Okay, that's fine.
yes, but you won't be using that one again.
No.
Bless her, she's given you a big dollop, but
Yeah.
you won't be using that one. Definitely that one. Yeah, I'm going to say that's going to change colour very quickly. That's lovely though, sorry. Yeah.
Was that the cobalt?
No, that's the cobalt.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
Started
Cobalt.
off the wrong one, didn't I?
And look how similar those look.
Yeah, they
So
are.
be careful, you might say you
Right.
might want to wipe that one out. We haven't used that one yet.
No, we haven't. Right, so that's cobalt. Okay.
Right, good. Can I just ask the same question, Claire?
Yeah.
And we haven't used this one.
No,
And what is it what we're using now?
We'll
with the
be-
pink?
this one.
That one with,
So
with this
yeah,
one.
so about 2/3 of the blue, about 1/3 of the pink should make a nice mauvey colour. Is this Anne's? Yes. Do you want anything from under here? You're right for the
Not at
moment.
but
Okay.
I might want to take the bulk.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
You all right?
Yeah, fine, thanks. Just thinking.
Just deciding which brush.
Oh, that's okay. I painted with that one and added water with that one, but you can do it either way you like. That will hold more water, obviously. Don't forget, you're going to add water quite quickly. Lovely. Yes. Yes. It's working. Leave it. Yes. The only thing you could do is get some water and just soften that bottom a little bit if you wanted to, just with water. Excellent. That's what you have friends for.
I went and found out exactly what paper they're using. It's the Bockingford 250 pound, 535 gram.
Brilliant. Thank you so
Okay, not,
much.
of course.
Okay.
Okay.
Fantastic.
All right, just so you need to re-emphasise it during
Yep,
the day.
that's
so they know
that is really good.
how it's coming out.
Appreciate
I don't know
that.
whether you want to say about Saunders Waterford. It's up to you.
Nope, that's fine. That's Bockingford. That's brilliant. So am I in the way? Are you constantly trying to see round me all the time? Don't forget to add some water onto the paper when you put the paint on. It will make this variation of tone going along.
The mountains on the picture go right across to this first tree, but you've sort of stopped yours.
I did, didn't I? I wanted it to sort of fade out. I very rarely do a pitch the same twice.
I'll
So,
just fade out to see this year.
right, you're going to fade away.
Fade away. That's
I quite like it just disappearing to nothing.
yeah.
Yeah,
I like that. I like the fading away.
good. Okay, water on the bottom. That works. Look, it's picked up lots of lovely colours from underneath. Nice. Very nice. That's a lovely mauve colour. You could do with adding just a tad more water into the top there. That's it. Don't forget your soft bottoms. That's nice. It is good.
Soggy bottoms, yes.
Soggy bottom. No, soft bottoms, not soggy bottom. Beautiful. Very nice. You are doing well. That looks good. Yes. Okay. Just water to make it sort of disappear. A couple of minutes and I'm going to move on. I'm just watching the clock. We need to just get a little bit more done if that's okay before lunch. Yep. Are you having trouble with your whopper over there? I should put it underneath your chair. So it's taking over your life. Okay, just to remind you what paper you're painting on today, because the questions come up. It is Bockingford. It's 535 gram GSM, which is £250. Very heavyweight. If it's slightly wrinkled, it will eventually just lay flat. So don't worry if it's not completely laying flat at the moment. And it's a knot surface. I think you could tell. If it wasn't knot, it would be, you know, quite bumpy to draw on. Very confusing. Isn't it typical in this country? We have to do grams and pounds, and people get very confused because I will often paint on £300 a paper, which doesn't wrinkle, you know, like that. And people say, no, I definitely painted on £300, Claire. And I look at it and I say, you sure it's not 300 gram? Which is actually £140. So it's very confusing, isn't it? So get your grams and pounds right when you look on the front of your pad. Right, I'm going to move on now. I'm just going to do one small thing this time. We'll let you do that, and then I'm going to move on to the background trees, and we should get that done. I'm going to do, just to show you on here, I'm going to put this little area of sort of shrubbery actually here that's catching the sunlight, the orange sunlight, and underneath is actually mist again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some water at the bottom. Yep. And I'm going to put a little bit of dotty water here and drop some colour in. So actually I'm going to have a hard top and a soft bottom. Make sure you've got... No. You can if you want to, Robert, but I'm going to have a soft bottom and a hard top. Derek, sorry. Beg your pardon. Right, so what I'm going to do is I started at the top here, about a third of the way up. I'm probably going to, from my third in the middle there, I'm probably going to start about a quarter of the way up. That makes sense? About there. Yep. But first thing I'm going to do is mix my colour up. So I want my lemon yellow. Okay, I'm using my little brush because I'm not going to be using very much paint, and a little quinacridone magenta to make a really lovely orange colour. Okay, that's probably a little bit red. Oh, I like it. I'll go with it. Right, okay, so if you want to watch me just painting this, okay, I'm going to wet the bottom. So I've got a wet, soft bottom, Derek, yeah? Okay. And just look what I'm going to do. I'm going to do some just dots of water up at the top here. Just going to dot some water up there. So some of the paint goes into, hold on, where's my little brush? This one. I'm going to use my little brush. Some of the paint will go into dry paper and some will go into wet paper. Just a little bit more yellow in there. So it's actually like foliage there. But I think at the top it's actually going into dry paper, so it's a stronger colour at the top than the bottom. Okay, and I'm going to carry on there until again it just show you here, it just fades away. So I'm using more water to make that fade away, keeping that bottom bit wet. So as I'm beginning to fade away, notice I've dipped my brush in the water so that I'm getting a much lighter colour. There we go, that's enough, and it's going to fade away. Okay, would you like to give that a go? Yes, and then I dotted a little bit at the top, and then I dropped the paint in at the top. You look as though you need to take that into the water, or actually take the water up to the paint, because you're not getting that softness. It's working, isn't it? Even though you've got it on a tilt, so just be careful it doesn't run.
I did have it fat, but must have been that fat.
No, you paint how you want to. So some clean water at the bottom, yeah? And then this, I would just, rather than spraying it, because you don't know where it's going, just dot with the water, yeah? And you're going to have to get that colour a little bit stronger. It's a little bit watery. Little bit more paint versus the water. Do you mind if I just go like that? You need some more pigment. It needs to be stronger than that. A little bit more, 2/3 of the yellow and 1/3 of the bit more paint. You're doing the same. I think it's a bit wet. Yeah. So the bottom's a bit, just give it a little dab there so that stays dry. That's it. A little bit of the pink in there. Yeah. It's interesting. Your paints are very strong. I'd like to see a bit more, pigment in yours. Perfect. Yes. Much better. Doesn't matter. You need a little more yellow in there.
Yeah.
It's looking a bit like a swarm bee. So if you drop the yellow in between a little bit, it'll go more orange. It's looking good. Nice. Yes. That's it. If you want to just soften this little bit with a little bit of water, make sure it tips that way, not this way. Very nice. Yes. You don't need to help it. You like to help things, don't you? If it's working, I'm trying to stop you fiddling. Brush down. It works. Do you know this lady?
Yes.
Does she usually fiddle with her pictures?
She's used to doing it in oils, actually.
Is she?
Yeah, that's
So
what
is
it
this
is.
new for you, watercolour?
Pardon?
Is this new for you, watercolour? Wow.
She's just doing taking the oil principle.
Y-
Yeah.
I understand that.
Difficult to transition between.
Very
the two.
difficult. It's a very different way of painting, isn't it? And we're thinking light to dark,
Yeah.
not the other way round.
We use it a lot thinner than what you know, more water.
Yes, water's very key with watercolour.
Yeah, it is.
Mm.
I do, if I've done it before, I always put it on thicker, you know, and do it more like a,
This is looking
But it's
lovely.
turning out better than mine. So.
no,
Well, just ask her, she'll tell you how to do it.
Exactly.
Looking good. Very nice. This is looking lovely, isn't it? Well done, you. Yeah. Creative lady. Good. Okay. You're trying to get a soft bottom there, Derek. That looks better. Much better. Looks really good. Good. You don't need to help it. Looks lovely. That looks lovely. Right. I am going to move on. What we're going to do now is we're going to start painting the distant trees here on the right-hand side. You've got some trees in the foreground here, or midground, I should say, and some at the back. Yeah? So what we're going to do is we're going to mix up a colour. Now, what colour should we mix up here? I think we'll do a brownie colour with a little bit of pink in it. So what we're going to do is use our ultramarine blue. The ultramarine is the second from the bottom. You won't be using the phthalo anymore. I'm just going to take that out so I'm not tempted to dip into it. Right, so I'm going to take my ultramarine and put just a touch of burnt sienna in it. So we're getting a browny colour. That's quite a dark brown. That's better. Ultramarine with a little burnt sienna to get a dark brown. Yes, to mix my paints, I am. Okay, can I move on? What I'm going to do is I'm going to use that colour, but I'm also going to drop some of the mauvey colour that we used in the background hills. All right, so I'm going to be using two colours alternatively in the back here. So what you need to do is make sure you've got some clean water. And what I'm going to do is just use the water at the top where I think the trees are going to go. So here's the bottom of my tree trunks, and I'm going about 3/4 the way up. Let me just show you here. Right, your tree trunks go up to there, so I'm just wetting the top about 3/4 the way up, and I'm wetting them. If you have a look at tree shaped, do you see? I'm thinking tree shapes. And I'm just wetting the top of the trees there. Right, so I'm going to go into my brownie colour and just drop. So the water's here and I'm putting the paint here. Can you see that? Just below where the paint is. And what should happen is you will, and I'm thinking tree shapes. You should end up with some soft tops to your tree trunks there. Sorry, to your leaves. And then I'm going to go into the mauve and just put a little bit of mauve in here as well. Before that dries, just soften it with water. I'm not putting the tree trunks in. I want the water to go up. This is why I prefer to have my paper flat, because I'm controlling where that paint goes. Right, let's do another one. So I'm just wetting the top again as I go along. And I know it looks orange there, but we'll be going back in and just dropping some orange in later. I just want to get a feeling of some distant trees back there to start with. Right, so water's there, I'm putting the paint there. And it makes sort of tree shapes as I'm kind of wiggling it around. Okay, then I'm going in with my mauvey colour as well, just to make slightly different colour. Is it showing up? You can see the mauve coming through there, can't you? Some at the top. And again, I'm going to soften, just soften that bottom. Okay, so if you could do that now, I say we're going to not worry about tree trunks or anything like that. And we've made some distant trees. So you're making a brown, essentially, with the ultramarine and the burnt sienna. That's it. And then dropping some purple in. More water. It's a bit strong. That's the strength you're going to want for your foreground trunk, so you need a lot more water. Push it back. Lovely, you've got it.
Too dark in there, yeah?
No, you don't want it too dark. Little more water. It's a little bit strong, isn't it?
Yeah.
The other thing is, as soon as you come into dry paper, which is what's happening, you're not getting it dissipating, so you could just have a little bit more water on there. Distant trees. Yep. I'm going to suggest a little bit of water and just sort of fade them away just a little bit. They've stopped very suddenly there. Nice. I like your colours.
Oh, thank you.
Don't want to lose there, that.
No, we don't. Just a little bit of water to soften at the bottom. I
Yes.
agree with you. That's lovely, isn't it?
So leave
Yeah.
it.
Just soften the
Work on
bottom a
that.
little. Yeah, just soften it with some water. That's really nice. Great. Nice colours. Yeah. A little bit of purple in that. Purple, which you need to mix a little bit more up
Yes,
there.
yeah.
2/3 that and 1/3 of the pink. He's doing quite well, isn't he? With your guidance.
No, not with mine. No, on his own.
That's lovely. Very nice. I like the way the purples are coming through here. Okay, keep going. Still quite dark. Just a little bit of water at the bottom to soften the bottom. We'll just dissipate it a little bit.
I think I'm too high up. I think there should have been more there. Can actually bring it all down.
Yeah, well, the problem is it's beginning to dry. So I'm going to suggest you leave it.
Right.
And then when that's dry, perhaps before we start after lunch, come back and just bring it down a little bit.
Okay.
But if you go in now, that will spoil what you've done.
Okay.
And there's no problem it's high, it's just your picture. Yeah. Nice colours. Okay. You're going to have to forgive me. I'm going to just carry on. Is that all right? Right, we've got just enough time to do a little bit on the right-hand side. Left-hand side, sorry. Don't know my right from my left. Okay, so what we're going to do, again, we're going to think. Try not to put it on there, it's not too wet. We're going to think behind this tree here in the foreground, and we're going to put these trees in the background here. Not the tree trunks at the moment, but just the leaves. And you notice I have a little more orange in there that I actually want to put in now, whereas the other side I'm going to put it in afterwards. Yeah? So I'm going to go with the same colour with the dark brown, but I might just drop a little bit of orange in. So same principle. Tree shapes with the water, because where you put the water is where the paint goes. And I'm going to drop a little orange in there to start with, because that is catching the sun there. But again, I want that to be soft at the bottom, so I'm just making sure that... Mind your head. It's getting near lunchtime. Okay, I'm doing this fairly quickly. So I'm bringing the trees, some of them, over, down below the hills. Okay, and then into my brown. Little autumn colours. But again, we're still kind of mid-ground rather than foreground. So water at the top again, water at the top and the paint below. Into my dark brown. I'm using quite a lot of orange this side and not so much of the purple. And I bring it down to actually meet the top of that, those orange shrubbery down there. So if you want to give this a go, and then we'll be stopping in about 6 minutes, I think, for lunch. Okay. What's happened this side, you've stopped very suddenly. I think if you just take it almost a little water and drop a little bit of colour in. Just a little bit, hardly any paint. That's it. So it kind of disappears slowly. That's better. Much better. Now if you start over that side. That's nice. Don't need to take it out. It's lovely. Yes. It is bold. Well, I've been painting with 2 brushes. You look as though you've got 3 or 4 down there at once. Plenty of water. Yeah, clean water at the top. That's it. And you can bring it right down to there, but leave some gaps so you can just see the hills peeking through if you can. You want to try and leave a few spaces just so the hills show through a little bit. I've almost lost mine. So don't do what I do, please. Do as I tell you. Yes, that's nice. You can still see your hills sneaking through there. So you're going to drop a little bit of dark brown in now.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
yes,
this
but
one end up
don't
being-
lose the hills like I have, please.
Don't lose.
Try not to, don't lose all the hills. I've lost an
Oh.
awful lot of mine. I've got them at the end, but I've kind of lost them there. So seeing them peek through a little bit is lovely. Did someone say more? Was it me? Ah, right. You could bring it down just a little bit. Just a little bit with the dark brown. And some of this dark brown could come up into the trees as well. That's probably enough. I think you've finished. Yeah, looks good to me.
Forget the trees, because you've got the bark there.
Well, you can go over that because it's going to be darker.
But what I meant was you forget that that won't be showing that bit of
No,
bark.
it won't. But the nice thing is I can still see some of these hills peeking through here, which is lovely.
Because I've got brown here,
Hmm.
I was wondering if I ought to go a bit higher.
You
So
could,
got-
yes, you need to come a little bit higher here.
Because of
Yeah, you
having
need,
done
look,
the...
look,
yeah,
this
yes.
sort of shape.
Yeah, I wondered if
This
I should,
fine,
yeah.
just a little bit at the top.
I obscured them, so I've tried to paint the hills back in again.
Good plan. No, it looks good. Very nice, like it. I like it. Look quite shocked.
Yeah.
That's gorgeous. Do you paint watercolour quite often?
No, she's a colour pencil
I'm a
person.
colour pencil.
Wow.
Alien to me.
Is it? Looks good. Very nice. You don't need to do much more.
I think I really.
Mm. I think that's enough paint.
Yeah.
Yes, it's enough paint for watercolor. If you're going to put on too much more, it'll get too heavy. The only thing I'm going to suggest is that you, with some water, just fade that out just a little bit so that it meets the middle. Looks lovely, but you don't need any more paint. Yes? Is that better? Okay, Adam, we're stopping in a minute, about 1 minute. Okay. So in about 1 minute, I should say, artist, could you put your paintbrushes down? I've always wanted to do that. Artist, you've got 2 hours. It's a relief, isn't it? Okay. Just a few of you are kind of painting for Britain here. You've probably got enough paint on there. That's looking lovely. Get as much paint on before lunch. Yeah. No. Okay, I'd like to do that. All right, we're going to stop for lunch for an hour and a half. So we'll be back on live at 2 o'clock. So we look forward to welcoming you back. I do hope you'll join us if you're at home watching this. And that you've been painting on. If not, please join us again at 2. All right, bye-bye for now. They're all saying goodbye to you here as well. It's lovely. Okay, if you finish, which most of you have,